Welcome back to our series on the art of conflict. Have you ever been on the receiving end of conflict gone wrong? You know what I mean? One of those moments where maybe you made a mistake or you accidentally hurt someone's feelings, and now here you are dealing with someone who's really upset with you. And they've decided that talking about it right now in front of everyone is the right time to get into it. Well, I know that I have. And since I'm spilling the beans, the truth is I've been on both ends, and it's the worst. On the receiving end, it felt completely humiliating and embarrassing. I felt exposed and unfairly criticized, even though when I look back at what they were saying, it was basically true. But it didn't change my feelings about the interaction. It made me feel defensive, angry, and to be honest, a little bit out of control internally. And what made it 10 times worse was that it was in front of my peers. So have you ever been on the receiving side? It can be pretty rough. But you know what can be even worse? Is when you discover that you're on the giving side of that situation. This is that moment when maybe you even had good intentions, but you were so intent on sharing your wisdom or your perspective that you forgot that there was an audience watching. And maybe even if you were feeling frustrated, you might not have even cared that there was an audience watching. You just wanted to be done with the whole situation. So you had the conflict right there in front of everyone. Now, I know that for me, I've been on all different versions of this response myself, giving my sage advice and wisdom, only to discover that the right advice at the wrong time can often become the wrong thing. And then it almost guarantees that your wisdom's not going to get heard, or even more likely that your wisdom's going to get twisted. And when this happens, boy, does it hurt. So the tool I want to share with you in today's session is a simple but powerful rule of thumb, and it's to always allow people to save face. There's so much unnecessary conflict that can be completely avoided when we simply allow others to save face by being sensitive to the time and the place in which we engage them with those conversations. A good way to remember this is like this: no audience equals no drama. The reverse is also true. If there is an audience, it will almost always escalate the drama in a way that erodes trust. The other person may seem composed in the moment, but unless they're extremely confident, most of the time it creates a rift in the relationship that may leave you puzzled as to why or how we got there and why they've distanced themselves from you. This is often the moment where we have the painful realization that even us as leaders can miss the mark on important moments like this. So here's a few keys to help allowing people to save face be even more powerful for you as a leader. Key number 1 is to keep it out of sight. The goal of these conversations is to have them in an office or at minimum out of the visual lines of others, which is going to help the person who you need to have the conflict with feel like you honor their privacy and like you're not trying to embarrass them. Key number 2 is to keep it out of hearing range. Keeping the conversation out of hearing range is super important because it helps the person feel safe knowing that you're trying to keep the conversation between the two of you, not the whole team. If the person feels like others are close enough to hear what's being said, it's not going to create the best scenario for you to actually be heard or to have a good back and forth conversation about what's actually going on, because the person will feel like they need to protect themselves and they're not going to want to open up in that context. Key number 3 is that it matters how you ask. The goal of asking is to keep it as low key as possible. And if at all possible, not to ask them to meet with you in front of others because everyone's going to go, oh, I wonder why they're meeting. But if you do it quietly on the side, it's going to help keep that anxiety low, and it's going to allow you to preserve their dignity so they don't feel like they're getting in trouble in front of their peers. As I wrap up my thoughts on this particular tool, I just wanted to say with all humility that this is one of the most powerful and underrated tools out there. It's so simple that people probably just disregard it, or it's so simple that we just forget about it because we get so busy doing what we're doing, not realizing that there might be an audience around. not realizing that we might be changing how that person's reacting to us just because of who's around us. I can authentically say to you that I used to be really good at this for a really long time, and that I have to consistently remind myself to do this better, especially nowadays. I've just noticed that the busier I've become, it's so much easier for me to rush into conversations and forget to allow people to save face. And allowing people to save face is almost like the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have done unto yourself. So would you want your moment of conflict to be in front of everyone else, where everyone else can hear you or even be close enough to guess at what was being said and talked about? Probably not. But it's so easy for us as leaders to forget that and not realize how much that can make the other person feel uncomfortable or shut down, which ends up meaning that you don't make the impact that you want to make.